Unless you're living under a rock, there is no way you stumbled across this video and don't know that Games Workshop is relaunching Warhammer Fantasy with a new game called The Old World, and they're starting with the Tomb Kings and Bretonnia. It's probably pretty obvious to figure out from my videos or from the artwork behind me that I am a massive fan of Bretonnia. So this is all very cool for me. I mean, this is the most attention Bretonnia's gotten basically since I was 4 or 5 in my lifetime. Like, Bretonnia has never gotten this much coverage. And it's really cool to see everyone excited about starting a new Bretonnian army. I understand that GW had a lot of good business reasons to relaunch this game with the Tomb Kings and Bretonnia. However, to be honest, I do not feel like Bretonnia is a very good first army if you're new to tabletop gaming. If you're an old head and you're dipping your toes back into it and are starting a Bretonnian army, you kind of know what to expect, you're going to be fine. But I'm a little worried that a lot of these people who are buying these very expensive starter sets and these very expensive resin models are going to have a lot of buyer's remorse as they get into the game and see what other factions do compared to how Bretonnia works. So I just want to create this quick video to go over a few things about Bretonnia that you should consider before deciding that they are the faction for you. So let's talk about army diversity, or lack of it in this case. A faction like the Empire can do it all. Gun lines, infantry heavy, cavalry, monsters, maybe even magic focused. Bretonnia, on the other hand, can't make up that diverse workplace cliché photograph. It's a niche army. The only list you can really do involve damsel casting buffs, knights charging, and maybe some peasants to do the essential work that the rest of your units don't want to bother with. And that playstyle is hard to master. To get those redirects going, to get charging into flanks and protecting your knights when they need to be protected. But once you get that down, most of your games are going to play out almost the exact same way. It's just getting your opponent to work with what you're trying to do, which is basically the same thing every time. And at this point, you might be thinking, yeah, that was true for Warhammer Fantasy, but this might not be true for the Old World. The Old World has heavy armored knights. They have the exile list, which might be true. But my take on the rules of what I've seen so far is those heavily armored knights' main niche in the Old World is going to be as a bit box to help personalize your mounted knights. And the exile list is fun and fluffy, and as a Bretonnian player, I'm really looking forward to it, but it's basically going to be Empire light. And if that's the list you want to run, you have to ask yourself, why not deal with either the Dwarves or the Empire, people who can do that kind of list, but better. And speaking of the Empire, that brings me to my next point, that Bretonnia is a minor faction. It's cool to see Bretonnia get so much of the spotlight right now, but you should keep in mind that for the majority of Warhammer Fantasy, at the center of all the stories is the Empire, and it's always going to be the Empire. Bretonnia, at best, is a secondary human faction. Even during the end times, when GW was taking down all of Warhammer Fantasy and bringing everything to a close, Bretonnia was really just kind of there. And their story was mostly just to support the Empire. Or to put it another way, if this was a Harry Potter movie, the Empire would be Harry, Dwarves would be Ron, High Elves would be Hermione, and Bretonnia would be one of their weird classmates who's in the movies every now and then and occasionally pops up, does something cool, but it's rare enough your mom makes you pause the movie so you can explain to her who that character is and why they're in the movie again. And you might be thinking that it's going to be different this time. And honestly, it might. I can't predict the future. But I can tell you that it is the Sigmar hammer in the center of the new logo. Plus, the biggest events in this time period that GW wants to base this new game around are the War of the Three Emperors and, of course, the Siege of Prague. Both are going to have a really big Empire focus. Combine that with the fact that GW wants to bring in Kislev and Cathay into this, which make more sense introduced through the Empire, you can expect a lot of Empire-focused storylines going forward. This may be a big sticking point for people who come from playing Space Marines or maybe the Imperial Guard from 40k, who are used to being at the center of the narrative. I suspect modern GW will be better than the past GW for things like this, and there are some cool things in this time period to explore with Bretonnia. This takes place during the reign of Luin Orcslayer, who did a big errantry war against the Greenskins, and I expect that's going to make a really cool book. But overall, you can expect the majority of the narrative and the majority of the new models to probably be for larger factions such as the Empire, High Elves, Dwarves, etc. But if none of those things bother you, or you really just want an army where you're heroic charging knights all the time, Bretonnia is really awesome. The old world is bringing back a lot of old scopes, and I do think those 6th edition knights are amazing, and that Men at Arms set is one of the best kits GW has ever done. And while they may be a one-trick pony on the tabletop, the fact that you can paint each of your knights in individual colors means that it will push your painting skill, and you'll never get tired of painting the same scheme over and over again. Well, maybe a little bit for the peasants, but let's be honest, nobody's starting a Bretonnian army to focus on the peasants. No matter what faction you choose, I hope you enjoy diving into Warhammer Fantasy. It is one of my favorite fictional worlds. I love playing the game, I love doing stories, I love painting, I love making these videos. I hope you find some joy in it too. As always, thanks for watching.